Preach, Freddie Haynes, I am. So here it is. Here it is. Reuben Hurricane Carter is in jail because of a troll named Della Pesca, who misused and abused his policing authority and became a predatory police officer. And that's why it's important that we always keep in mind, we ain't hating on the good cops. We love good cops. We want to correct a policing system that has in its DNA a horrid and hate-filled history of making sure black lives did not matter. Policing in black communities can be traced in its DNA all the way back to the slave patrols and the black codes and Bull Connor and Jim Clark and those police officers that beat the life out of Rodney King. That's the experience that we have had, and that's why we're calling for a reform of the policing system and the criminal justice system, so there is liberty and justice for all, and not just y'all in Highland Park. I'm trying to simply say, my sisters and brothers, that here is Reuben Hurricane Carter being trolled by a vicious police officer. Here is Reuben Hurricane Carter teaching us how God is so good that in a hostile environment, in an adversarial atmosphere, God can use that dirt to set the stage for you to blossom. If you don't believe it, then check out the life of King David. Now, we know King David by way of his glory, because David is the one we shout about when we recite, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, restores my soul, leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake." We know the glory of David. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Here David pen poetic brilliance as David talks about, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" David was a musical genius. David was a lyrical genius. David had it like that as just a young man. David had all of that musical gift inside of him. But David soon discovers that your gifts will create enemies for you, who in a real sense now have to beef with you. Do you see this musical genius who now has to deal in an enemy environment that is hostile to his aspirations and adversarial atmosphere, because there's a troll in that atmosphere by the name of Saul. Saul can't stand him. Saul is hating on him, and Saul now has a beef with him, and that's where we pick up the story right now, because the Bible lets us know that David, my sisters and brothers, after all, had gotten to the palace, and he was least expected to succeed. Y'all know the story, don't you? That when Samuel came to anoint the king, he was sent by God to Jesse's house, and Jesse brought all of his sons out except David. He was overlooked by his own family, but he was targeted by Almighty God. Isn't it good to know that even when folk you live with don't see your gifts, God can see your gifts? Because you do recognize sometimes it's people who are closest to us that don't recognize the greatness that God has invested in us. And so they overlook them. And when they overlook them, Samuel says, no, you sent out all the ones who got the look. But you don't understand how God operates. You see, man looks on the outward appearance, but God checks out the heart. I think I'm going to help somebody, since we're talking about relationships this month. It's cool to get someone that looks good, but make sure they ain't no good. It's cool to get someone who drives a fly ride, but you better check out what drives them. It's cool to have someone who dresses nice, but make sure they ain't a dressed up nobody. A lot of folk wear all kind of designer names on their body and don't know who the hell they are. If they don't know who the hell they are, then you can't have a healthy relationship with them. Boy, I'm preaching already, huh? And so watch this. Jay-Z talked about that too, but I ain't got time to do all of that. When he talks about that art piece he bought, and that art piece he bought went from 1 million to 2 million to 8 million, and now he's going to bequeath it to his children while the rest of us are living rich and dying broke. We got to watch that kind of sick mentality, because a whole lot of folk look good on the outside, but they are ugly, hot mess on the inside. Be sure you understand, all that glitters ain't gold, all that shines ain't silver, and all that's pretty show ain't platinum. You preaching Freddie Haynes, thank you. That was kind of good, huh? Tweet that, okay? That was too good to let this get by. And so understand, my brothers and sisters, that here is David being overlooked. Oh man, I got to go back with some old Jay-Z, because that's what Jay-Z says in his album when he talked about how he was overlooked and he wasn't drafted. But then he goes on to say, betcha I bring $1 billion before I'm done. I like that right there, because Jay-Z is referring to the fact that when he first hit the rap game, that he could not get a major label to accept him, and as a consequence, the major label wouldn't accept him. They kept closing doors on him. Now they wish they had him, because guess what? Jay-Z took every shut door, and he and his boys formed Rockefeller Nation, and that's why they're worth over $1 billion right now, because some shut doors will point you to where God is trying to take you. So maybe you ought to start thanking God for some doors that did not open. Maybe you ought to start thanking God that stuff did not go the way you wanted to go when you wanted it to go, because God was trying to raise you up to do your own thing. God sent somebody to this service to simply tell you, quit looking for jobs and get ready to create some jobs, and use the jobs you get to save enough money so you can start creating jobs, and not be satisfied with signing the back of the check, but you sign the bottom of the front check. That's what we need. I got to push this thing, because what really hypes me is that David